Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and today I am giving you my top drugstore and affordable makeup recommendations. If you're curious about some good products you can get for a great price, keep on watching. Before we get too far into the video, please take a second to click the subscribe button. I upload videos 2 times a week. It's totally free to subscribe and I would love to have you back again on the channel. So this is a video idea I was asked to do a few videos back in the comments. Somebody said they would really love to see some drugstore recommendations. So that is what today's video is, and let's go ahead and get into it. Alright guys, so we're starting with the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. This is the original. Now this video is all going to be tried and true drugstore items. These aren't going to be any first impressions. These are just like things I truly feel comfortable recommending to you that I know, like I've used these so many times and they work well every time. I did want to go ahead and apply the items while talking about them just because I thought seeing them might remind you how good they are and just show you some of the results. For me, I like this one because I have combination skin and I do have very large pores, especially in this region. And I like to put a little bit up here on the forehead too because it does help to fill in some of the fine lines I'm starting to have. I did also really like the Wet n Wild Impossible Primer, but the component made application not great for me, so I'm not going to repurchase that till, you know, if they were to fix that problem. I also have a new one from Wet n Wild. I think it's like called something about like glass skin or something like that. So if you are curious to see a drugstore video of like first impressions or testing new makeup at the drugstore, let me know down in the comments below because I definitely have some stuff that I can do testing new stuff versus, like I said, this is more of a recommendations of tried and true drugstore products. So next I went ahead and dotted on from Maybelline the Matte and Poreless Fit Me Foundation. Again, I have really big pores. This I feel like works really well. It's not so matte that it's over drying though, and I really do feel like with the e.l.f. pore minimizing things, you know, the putty primer plus this, the pores really do just go away. So lately I've been into brushes, but you can do a sponge, whatever you want. Speaking of brushes, I'm not using all drugstore brushes in this video. Brushes are one thing I really think you should invest in. Brushes and eyeshadows, I'll tell you right now, are the two things that I really don't think that the drugstore has anything available that can even touch what indie brands and more mid-tier to high-end brands are offering right now. If you are looking for something more affordable, I would say, you know, Morphe I think is better than your drugstore brands. You should have some kind of brush or sponge though, especially for the eyeshadow. Don't use those little like spongy tipped applicator things that they sometimes put in drugstore eyeshadows. The shadows are not going to perform at their best with those. I used this in high school. I used this for years, and let me tell you, once I switched, I never went back. But my first brushes were Wet n Wild brushes. They were okay. I think Morphe's better. But indie brands too, they do sales, so you can find stuff sometimes as cheap as Morphe or drugstore prices if you're watching and buy at the right time. My shade, in case you're interested, by the way, is 120 Classic Ivory. All right, next I'm going to go in with concealer. I'm going to let that sit a little bit because I think it helps the coverage a bit more for this. This is the Wet n Wild Mega Last Incognito All Day Full Coverage Concealer. Mine is in shade Fair. I actually didn't really care for this concealer the first time I used it. I'll link the video. It was a testing new makeup video I tried this in quite some time ago. And I didn't care for it because I thought it was too drying, made my under eyes look too crepe-like. But I have actually come to realize that if I do correct preparation, like moisturize under my eyes, and I have correct skin preparation before using this, it's really nice. So I can recommend this as a drugstore concealer with the caveat of like, make sure you're careful and you prep. By the way, other drugstore foundations I really love. If you don't want this Maybelline one, the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop I really like. I also love the Believe Beauty foundation from Dollar General. So those would be some other recommendations. there's not a lot of other drugstore concealers I can recommend. Like I've tried some from LA Girl and other drugstore brands that I just really do not like. So this is really all I can say in this exact moment for you. While we're letting that sit and get a little bit more coverage before we blend it out, I'm gonna go ahead and fill in my brows. I have pretty luscious brows to begin with, so I don't do a lot. I just comb them up and kind of fill in the sparse spots. And I'm using the NYX Tame and Frame Tinted Brow Pomade. Mine in particular is in shade Brunette. And then, like I said, I spoolie them up and then I use a little liner brush and I just go into the pot and fill in any sparse areas that I might have in the brow. I'll say for this one, make sure you screw the lid on really, really well for the pomade because it can dry out. Mine's starting to dry out a little bit, so I am trying to use it up. It's gonna last you forever though, and it's not very expensive. If you're more into powders, I did use a complete thing up of the City Color brow product, and that was nice, although I think it's a little harder to get an exact brow shade for that powder. Honestly, when this is gone, I might just either use a tinted gel or just find an eyeshadow that works and is my color, because I do like using powder. I think it blends with the hairs really well versus a pomade. So you can get away with a lot with the brows without actually buying anything. Gel, on the other hand, that's another story. Now I've tried quite a few gels from places like Essence that the formula is not necessarily the problem with a lot of these. For me, a lot of times it's the applicator. So I want to recommend you the NYX Bear With Me. This is specifically the Cannabis Sativa Seed Oil Brow Setter. It's clear, but what I like about it is that it's such a teensy tiny little brush applicator. I hate when there's a mess all over my brows and I want to keep things, you know, right in my brows. Even though it's clear, sometimes that clear stuff, if it goes above your brows, it can dry and look like glossy on the skin and it's really obvious, or it can be sticky, it can disrupt your foundation. I'm just not a fan of that. So I love this teensy tiny little brush. You might have to go in for a few more dips than you normally would because it's such a tiny brush and it holds a tiny amount of product. But I prefer having to dip in multiple times and getting a really precise brow look over, like I said, the like weird sticky glassy glazed look on the skin because the applicator was way too big. This is really the only like drugstore brow product, like gel product I have found that is like that tiny of an applicator. So it's more to me about the applicator than the formula itself for most of these. And the hold is really nice for this too. It's not too crunchy or crispy, which I prefer. All right, now we're gonna blend in the concealer. You could absolutely get a shade that matches your skin tone more if you're just looking to spot conceal. Mine is, you can probably tell, much lighter than my foundation color because I did want to use it to also brighten. Now, I really don't need to, like I said, this is pretty full coverage, this concealer. I don't really need to set it that much, especially since I do have like that matte foundation on. It doesn't really crease for me. If you want to set it though, you want a setting powder. The Coty one Airspun is affordable, but I do not recommend that just based on the fragrance and the scent alone. It is nasty smelling in my opinion. I would recommend the Wet n Wild Photo Focus powder. I've used that one before with different foundations. If you're someone that wants a set, wants a little translucent powder, that one is really, really nice. I just realized too, all those foundations I recommended are more medium coverage, so keep that in mind. If you want something lighter, the Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator is really nice. Full coverage at the drugstore I feel like looks cakey. I have tried like the Milani 3-in-1 thing, that's really cakey in my opinion. Oh, the e.l.f. like CC one that a lot of people like and say it reminds them of IT Cosmetics, I don't like that. I think it's too cakey. So yeah, I prefer more of a medium coverage personally, and then just to spot conceal where needed. Okay, for bronzer, we're actually gonna use Morphe. Again, like I said, this is like drugstore slash affordable. What's around me for drugstores is like CVS, that's it. Other than that, we've got Walmart, Dollar General, Kroger, the grocery store has a little bit of a drugstore section, and then things like TJ Maxx, stuff like that. So I'm going for more like anything that's just in the affordable section, right? So this is Morphe's Bronzer. It's supposed to be a bronzer and a contour, and I have mine in shade Glitterati. And I'm not gonna use, this is more of like a highlightery side. I'm just gonna stay on this side. This is a pretty like fair, neutral, kind of leaning cool tone for me. Other drugstore brands I would feel comfortable recommending for bronzers. If you want a cream bronzer, e.l.f. has really nice, those putty bronzers and blushes for that matter. And also Wet n Wild. Now I will say a lot of their bronzers are kind of shimmery, which is not preferred to me just because the shimmer on the face accentuates a lot of my texture. But just to give you a few options, you know, usually the shade shows up on me a lot more, but I've actually got, for me, a bit of a tan this summer, and this is not showing up as much. Most need something a little bit darker this time of year. But it'll do because the blush is gonna take over here in a minute anyway. Now I feel like a lot of drugstore brands do a really good blush, so you should be pretty easy. It should be pretty easy for you to find one that's good for blush. Maybelline makes great ones. L'Oreal has really good ones. And today I'm using the brand Palladio, which you can find at Sally Beauty. Here's the color. It's a nice orange blush. This is in shade Toasted Apricot. And just a little peachiness, you know? Blushes I feel like are pretty easy to find a nice pigmented smoothing blush. I love that so much. All right, we're gonna go ahead and set the face before we get into the eyes, and I'm gonna use the Milani Peach Make It Last Scented Setting Spray here. Any of the Milani setting sprays I've used have been great, the Make It Last line. They're all really nice. All right, and for a little highlighter from the drugstore, we're going with the Maybelline Master Chrome Metallic Highlighter. I've used this one for years. It's really nice for the drugstore. It's not as blinding or one of my favorites as, you know, my indie brand, like out of this world space highlighters, but for the drugstore, it's my favorite. Man, I really must have a tan right now because I feel like this looks a lot icier and whiter on me than it usually does on my skin tone. But you know, that's what happens when you've had a summer of traveling to Italy and Greece and Florida and band camps outside. Other drugstore options, I actually do think that Makeup Revolution makes some nice highlighters at the drugstore. All right, I'm gonna prime my eyelids with the Ulta Beauty Matte Eye Primer. So this is drugstore price. Again, it's just affordable. My nearest Ulta is like half an hour drive away from me, so it's not something I can get to all the time. Wow, I think this is either dried up or completely empty because nothing's coming out. Let me go run and see real quick if I have anything else drugstore, but I have used this one before and I personally like it because I have pretty veiny eyelids and this really covers that up well and gives a nice canceled out base before going on with shadow. Okay, so I can't find any other drugstore eyeshadow primers that I have currently. So I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit. I'm using the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion, but I will say I've used the Wet n Wild Eyeshadow Primer and it's like exactly the same as this. The only difference is you have to like squirt it out on your finger or a brush and put it on. There's no applicator with the Wet n Wild one, but the formula is pretty much the dang same thing, considering how much cheaper the Wet n Wild one is compared to the Urban Decay one. So that's what I would recommend for primer. Now, eyeshadow, like I said towards the beginning of the video, is one of the two things I would say if you can get out of the drugstore and invest more in, I would, because there's not that many good options in my opinion. But things that are more affordable, okay? Any of your big drugstore brands, I don't feel like are good. Like, I've never met a Maybelline or a L'Oreal or a Wet n Wild. Like, I take that back. There's the Rose, Airplay, whatever. Some of the Wet n Wild ones are okay, but most of those drugstore brands, the eyeshadows are not it. They're not it. Physicians Formula, they're not it, right? So affordable wise, I would say try to find something that's like affordable indie, if that makes sense. Something they carry maybe at Ulta, like a ColourPop or Juvia's Place, something like that. I feel like you'll be a lot happier with for your money. ColourPop does sales all the time too, guys. So today we're using the It's My Pleasure palette from ColourPop. This is definitely an older palette for them, but I do think it's really nice quality for the price, especially when compared to, like I said, some of those Maybelline or CoverGirl or Physicians Formula shadows that they try to pass off as eyeshadows that are just, they're so awful. So let's just do a quick little simple look here. I'm gonna go in with Kitten Fish in the crease. On the outer corner, I'm gonna use shade Sleeper. Then I'm gonna go in with my Ulta Beauty Glitter Primer just to give these shimmers a little bit of a pop, because since they are more affordable, I feel like this just really helps them shine to their brightest. You know, they don't always have the most shimmery metallic effect just by themselves. And this is just the one I have on hand. But of course, another drugstore great recommendation I have for you is the NYX Glitter Glue. I'm gonna put shade Bare Minimum, this kind of burgundy berry shimmer, on the outer portion. And then I'm gonna use shade Do or Dough, this top one, on the inner part. I'm gonna use that first brush in shade Kitten Fish just to blend a bit more in the crease. I'm also gonna throw a little of that on the lower lash line. I did put Sleeper on the outer portion of the lower lash line as well. And then I'll finish by putting a little bit of Earth Shine in the inner corner. And for that, I'll use my Milani setting spray again and spray it on the brush just to give it a little more oomph. And there you have what I think is a pretty darn cool looking, with a little bit of a shift with some of these color pops for the price. That's cool to get some little like shifty, slightly duochrome shades for an affordable cost. Now, if you're somebody that likes a pop of color in the waterline, I would recommend LA Girl highly for that. They have really nice eyeliners. I'm gonna use their Pastel Dream Auto Eyeliner, and this one is in the shade Baby Pink. ColourPop also makes really good liners here. If you want a liquid liner, you'll be hard pressed, I feel like, to find one at the drugstore that is good. That's just my personal opinion. I've tried several from NYX, Wet n Wild, and I haven't really found one I like. So again, that might be one that you just watch for a sale to see if you can find something that's really good. My favorite eyeliner of all time is from M Cosmetics. I'm gonna go ahead and use this one on the upper lash line though. It's the Raw Beauty Crispy and ColourPop collab in shade Spare Time. You of course could also use a dark eyeshadow as an eyeliner. Lash curler, mine's from Revlon and I think it's okay. But I will be honest, I haven't really like sampled, tested, tried a lot of lash curlers in my life, so I can't really give you too many recommendations about what is better or worse when it comes to the lash curling situation. I'm gonna go in with the mascara though that I have used since high school, and that is the CoverGirl Lash Blast Volume Mascara. Now I do have the primer I'll go ahead and use from CoverGirl as well, the Amplify Primer. I truly don't really feel like it does anything, but I'm using it because I have it, so this is not a recommendation. This is just me trying to get rid of a product, full disclosure. Some of you have told me you like mascara primers. I have not found one that I think does anything but maybe make it clumpy looking. So I personally don't usually waste my time with them. I feel like the mascara should be good enough, it doesn't need a primer. Just bring back memories for anybody else. Now the smell is not good, I will admit that, but the formula is good. If you're looking for something else drugstore recommendation wise, the NYX On The Rise one, the formula's good, but I don't like, the applicator's too pokey for me, so it's up to you if you think you can get around that or not, deal with it. But I would say probably my favorite drugstore mascara is the Milani Highly Rated Mascara, not the Gravity one, the original one. There's some brands too you just absolutely should not waste your time with mascara. I would say Wet n Wild and e.l.f. are those. I've never found a mascara I thought was good from either of those brands. I will say this mascara is a builder. You're gonna need lots of coats, but you can get it there. I'm not gonna put on any lashes today. It's truly just like a laundry chill housework day for me today. But if you want lashes that are affordable, I can easily say I would recommend Ardell or Kiss as affordable drugstore lash brands. Okay, and I think all we have left to do is the lip now. And for this, ooh, this is one of my favorite drugstore lips, guys. I have quite a few shades in this formula. This is the Physicians Formula Muru Muru Butter. So good. And this one's in shade Pop the Bubbly. They're so comfortable. You can use lip liner if you want, but you don't have to. I think I like it so much because it truly just feels like a hydrating lip balm to me. It's not gonna like last all day by any means. So if you're looking for longevity, this is not the thing. But again, I don't really have any liquid lipsticks for sure that I like at the drugstore. Not really. If you're looking for bullets though, I feel like CoverGirl has really nice bullet lipsticks at the drugstore. But yeah, guys, that is everything. That is my full face of drugstore and affordable makeup recommendations for you all. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want to recommend to me or to each other, if there's anything you think I should try. And yeah, again, let me know if you want to see drugstore kind of like more first impressions instead of the tried and true recommendations. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next time. Bye!